Everyone knows that feeling, wanting to experience more stories, but struggling to find the time. That's where Audible changes everything. With over 1 million audiobooks and Audible originals, there's a story waiting to spark anyone's imagination. Take The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley, the gripping psychological thriller that's keeping listeners on the edge of their seats. Imagine unraveling its mysteries during your morning commute, or losing yourself in its twists and turns while doing household chores. That's the magic of Audible. It transforms daily routines into opportunities for thrilling discoveries. The best part? Members get access to thousands of included titles, with new content added regularly. From bestsellers to hidden gems, every genre imaginable is at their fingertips. And with one easy-to-use app, switching between favorites or discovering new passions has never been simpler. There's more to imagine when you listen. Start a free 30-day Audible trial and get your first audiobook free at audible.com/Wondery. That's audible.com/Wondery.
Now it's time for Inspirational Women and my guest, Diane Height, a retired school teacher who realized she had a lot of life and adventure still to live, and so she set about doing that. We learned some of that story earlier this year, and Diane told us that she was going to be planning a summer trip back to Mongolia, the subject of her book, A Mongolian Memoir. So let's meet Diane and find out about that summer experience. Diane Height, good morning. Thank you so greatly for being with us once again.
It's a pleasure, Kate, to be with you. I enjoyed our last conversation, and we'll definitely enjoy this one also.
Oh, I'm sure that we will, and we might even touch on some things from then. Who knows? I don't remember all of the details, but the big thing was that as we talked about your memoir, which is aptly titled A Mongolian Memoir, we were talking about your experiences of going to Mongolia, but at that time, which was last spring, you had said, well, you were planning to go back again because the time seemed right. And you actually did go back this summer, right?
I did. I went back for almost the entire month of July, just about 4 weeks, and had an unbelievable time. And just things, it was amazing. It was amazing. I'm blessed.
Well, that's very exciting that it was so good, because sometimes it can be a little bit frightening to think it was so good back then. So many wonderful things happened. Can it be that good again? But you went and you said it was wonderful.
Yes, and there are changes, and especially in the area in Zyson, if you remember, that's where the school is, the American School of Ulaanbaatar. That's where I taught, and major changes there. And when I first saw it, I was kind of like, ooh, all right. But then I remembered, change is good, and I talk about change in my book, and how we have to, embrace it. And so I thought, gee, when I returned the second time to teach in 2014, there were also a lot of changes. And I jumped right in, and I said, I'm going to do this. And everybody was kind of giggling in the car, which I have to say, if you don't mind, I was ready for my, the flight is like 15 hours and then 15-hour time difference. And I think I came in on a Sunday morning after leaving late Friday night from LAX. And, I was tired, and I was ready to see my driver that I had all those years, Dala. And so I came around the corner, just like you do at all airports, especially international, where you've gone through passport control. And I came around the corner, and not only was, and it makes me get emotional right now, not only was my driver there, but my teaching assistant, Bogie, and her 2 kids, Kuchit and Angela, and everybody had, these big smiles on their faces, and we just all embraced, and we're all talking at the same time, but it was very exciting. And instead of taking me directly to Moogie's house, which is, she's my other assistant, teaching assistant, they sort of, toured around a little bit, which I totally appreciated. And look at this, remember this, Miss Diane, and her kids, who now are 6 years older, seem all grown up. But that was my introduction to coming back to Mongolia, and it couldn't have been better.
Oh, I'm experiencing that vicariously through your recounting as to what that feeling would be, because you can't help but have a little trepidation, but then to just have it totally wiped away because here's this almost entourage waiting for you and so excited to see you. It just attests to what you meant to them, what they meant to you, what the whole experience together really was for everyone.
Absolutely. There's a saying, and it goes, how they took their tea, or how they take their tea. And I use that, or I did use that in my book. And it means, watching how people live. And one of the things that I experienced that I was not ready for, I'm a planner, and so I'm always thinking, okay, we're going to do this, or we're going to do that, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And all of a sudden, it kind of changes. And so when I say how they took their tea, it's how they lived. Now, when you go on vacation, most of the time you stay in a resort or a hotel or something like that. And when I was teaching, I had my own apartment. But this was the first time that I actually stayed, or I did stay with families. I stayed with with Moogie for about a week, and then I went to the Gobi Desert, and I was just with a couple guys, tour guys, and stayed in my own gear. But then I came back and I stayed with Bogie, my other teaching assistant, and so I lived with these families, and I experienced things that I had not experienced living, believe it or not, for 5 years in Mongolia. It was amazing to me, just, observing. And, for instance, they gave me the best bedroom, both of them gave me the best bedroom in their apartment. And there's no questions asked. I mean, they would almost be insulted if I said, no, I'll just sleep on the sofa or whatever. That is not what they do. And I know I talked before about Kauai and Cambodia and Mongolia in the sense, and other countries also, where family is so important. And even if you're not blood related, I'm part of their family, and they treat me like that. So that was something that I experienced that I wasn't really ready for,
And isn't that just so beautiful that connection, which was 6 years ago, that's when it ended. And there was this big gap where a lot of stuff went on in our world in that gap, but to almost pick up and continue growing from what you meant to each other, it seems like it really deepened the relationship.
Yeah, and I like the way you said that. Good. Thank you for that, Kate. That's exactly what was going on. And the first, again, I stayed with Moogie and then the Gobi Desert, and then I went to Bogie. And the first morning that I got up, and I was still dealing with time difference, and so I would get up before everybody else. But the first morning I didn't, and I heard some commotion in the kitchen, and her son, who is, and I know he's going to laugh when he hears this because I'm terrible with ages. I have to even remember my age sometimes, 11 or 12. And he's in the kitchen making me breakfast, just me, breakfast. And a little bit for him, too. And that's the other thing about some of these countries where the children learn to do things and to respect their elders and their parents, and there's no question asked. I mean, it isn't, crying about it. I mean, they just are part of the family, and they do things to help out. And I thought that was so sweet. And along those lines, I just have to interject one thing. Because they taught me how to make the dumpling dish, which is called booze, which is served during, a lot of occasions. But I was there for Nada, which is the big festival. So, they showed me, both of them showed me how to make it again. But, of course, they're so much better than me. But I showed them, both families, how to make scrambled eggs. So I had the little boy Kuchit making them, and then his mom finally was making them. And it was, you just don't think of things like that. I mean, but that's, people, just being family to each other. And anyway, I thought that was kind of cute.
Oh, yeah, I agree. That is so wonderful. Just sharing our cultures and how they intermingle. Now, the thing is, they will potentially make scrambled eggs over time as well. After you've gone, will you though make, what is it, goose when you're home now?
B-U-U-Z. And booze. It's a dumpling. So flour. And then inside, and I think I talked about this before, inside is meat, and it could be hamburger, it could be mutton, because they don't kill young animals, babies, and that's where lamb comes from. So it's mutton or hamburger or some kind of meat with cabbage and a little bit of onion. And then it goes in the middle, and then you twist it, and that's the tricky part that I always had trouble with. And then you seam it, just like dumpling, like you see some dumplings made in a lot of Asian countries, and they're delicious. They're moist and really, really good. And I think I shared before, the Mongolians eat a lot of meat. And a lot of that has to do with the climate, because it's so cold. You need, to be fortified, and it's hard to grow things there. So a lot of stuff, a lot of fruits and vegetables are imported because of that. But I have attempted to, in the 6 years, I have attempted to make booze once, and it was okay. But and I told both my assistants, they laughed about it, and I said, I don't know, guys. I'm going to try, but I also wanted to share that I was there during the festival of Nadam, which is the celebration. It's different than Sagansar, which is in February, which is a celebration of the new moon, and a little bit more, I'm going to say spiritual. But Nadam celebrates Mongolia, and there's wrestling that goes on, archery, and horse racing, and serious horse racing. And Mugi's family, and the family's quite large, included me in everything, even though none of them spoke English except for Mugi. But they wanted me to be there with them, and in fact, one day, I think I said something to Mugi about, well, you guys go on, and I'm going to, do something else over here. And she looked at me and she said, why? They want you with them. And her mother, who speaks no English at all, just absolutely, we just connected. And it just goes to show you, what is language anyway?
Yes.
So during this festival, there were a lot of things going on, and I was included in everything. And again, they don't even question that. It's not like, oh, should we have her or not have her kind of thing. So that's, something that I experienced this time.
Oh, and that's lovely. I couldn't help But when you said, what is language anyway? And, there is that level of where we use words, it's physical that way. And then there's the heart language. There's just our, right, our beingness that communicates, and we feel that from each other.
Boy, you're right on with that too, Kate. You're absolutely right. It is heart language, and that's what I experienced there. And again, I have experienced that in Kauai and in Cambodia, and when I was in Southeast Asia for a short time. Definitely the same thing about family being important and people being important. And it was. I like that heart language. I'm going to remember that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Actually, I think just recently I heard a song again by Neil Diamond that I'd really forgotten about for years. Turn On Your Heart Light. And I think,
oh yeah,
do you remember that?
Yeah. Oh my.
And
right.
And that's the vision that kind of came into mind as you were describing your connection with the family. And I thought that's exactly what it is. We're just having that heart connection.
Yeah, and I mean, they wanted to make sure that, I was getting enough to eat, and I know, and enjoying myself, and not what was going on while I was first there. So when I was with Bogey after the Gobi Desert, there wasn't anything specific. Well, there was something. It was her 40th birthday, which was also very exciting. But there wasn't any festival going on. So, they were taking me places, and then I was showing them things, because I went back to, which was exciting for me, to my old haunts, I call them, the places that touched my heart. And one place in particular, I went by myself, and then I shared it with everybody. An art gallery that I just loved, and I loved going back after 6 years. It's changed a little bit, but you go in and it's so peaceful. Not a lot of people in there. Beautiful works by Mongolian artists, and I just enjoyed that. And then, of course, I went, if you remember, Millie's, where I used to go every Saturday morning for my breakfast. And when I walked in and he saw me, I think he knew I was coming. I'm trying to, I didn't want to, I kind of like surprising people, but then I wanted to make sure that his wife, that they were both there. So, I had a good time, with them. And then I went to a new museum called Genghis Khan Museum, and absolutely beautiful. 7 floors of the history of Mongolia that everybody should go in and see. And so I did old things and I did new things, and found a new coffee place for when I go back.
Oh, I like the sound of that. When you go back.
Well, I don't know. I'm thinking. Mm-hmm. I'm doing that thinking thing, and I definitely miss it. And I'm trying to follow my own advice in my book about just if the call is there, then answer the call. And I just saw something on the internet about 51, maybe you saw it too, 51 people in the entertainment business that are at least 70 or more, and many of them are in their 80s, and all these people are still working, and they're well-known people. I mean, it's just Helen Mirren.
Yes.
She's 78, 77, my age. And, it just, that really spoke to me. So I don't know. I'm sort of putting it out there. I love teaching, and I love teaching kids, little kids, but also like college age, like when I was volunteering when I was there. I miss that. So we'll see.
Right. Well, you would have thought that you wouldn't have gone when you did 10 some years ago. That was a whole new adventure. So why put a number on things?
Oh, I love that. You are just full of. You're absolutely right. Why put a number? And that's when I saw this article on the internet about these 51 movie stars, if you will, and all in their 70s, and some of them are in their 90s, and they are still working. And you're right. Why put a number on something?
Right.
Absolutely.
Well, there was a movie that came out just earlier this year, I think. I was trying to think of the name of it. Jane Fonda was in it, Lily Tomlin.
And I don't remember the name of it, but it was excellent.
Yes. And and
one thing that I want to share with everybody is, along with watching, how people take their tea and observing, the difference in cultures. And I wasn't ready for that. And I also wasn't ready for something that maybe was even more powerful about me. Being in Mongolia, I had a sense that I lost some of being Mongolian, like the phrase that I use in my book, and all of us, even the Mongolians, would say over and over again, "Oh, well, it's Mongolia." And as I was there, I realized that who I was when I was there, some of that, a lot of it, is gone. The rushing around, not having a slower pace, people seem more important in Mongolia than maybe here. And again, that phrase, "it's Mongolia," don't worry about it. The Hawaiians have the same thing. It'll all get done when it's supposed to get done. And I get caught up in that whole thing here of, it's got to get done yesterday. And it just overwhelmed me how much I thought, gosh, I have lost the thing that I loved about me when I lived in Mongolia. That was an eye-opener.
And it does feel like something that we definitely could use here in our society. So wouldn't it be great if you could be modeling that? I mean, certainly visit there or even go back to live again, but to bring here and make it part of our culture?
I agree. And it seems like I had mentioned to you earlier, I believe, that I got a new laptop, a new computer, and they were wonderful helping me. But I looked at the guy and I said, "This seems more complicated than my old one. Now, I know it's better." And he's laughing. And he said, "You know what? You're absolutely right." And I said, "How can this be? How can we be advancing on one hand and yet it's, and it isn't an age thing. Younger people are overwhelmed by the technology and what we have to know, and why is it not as easy as it used to be?" And I don't know what the answer is.
Right. Except for then just deliberately taking time to unplug, taking time to create that space to be just with family and close friends and not make things this a grand affair. Keep it simple.
Yes. And I love all of that. And I don't know, maybe I feel that I can't do it here, but I was definitely able to do it in other countries. And again, not just in Mongolia, but in Cambodia, in Kauai. I sense that just pulling back, going slower, and that it's just in many parts of the world, that's just the way it is. And it's just not America that's going at Mach speed, but I think it's an issue. So I don't know.
Well, there is something to contemplate. I know that you were also working on a novel. Are you still doing that?
I am. I actually have not. I am and I'm not. So it's there and it calls to me. So I need to do that.
Well, yeah. No, that's part of my question then, since just thinking about asking you, but also, thinking of what it means to me and others listening, thinking what it means to them to find that place of, well, it's Mongolia or, well, Kauai, island time. How do we find that more quiet, less crazy, frenetic place? And yours with writing, is it perhaps going off into even, just a corner space where you don't let anything else interrupt and you're going to do your writing?
Exactly. And I don't know. That's something for me to think about and contemplate. And a friend of mine had said to me that I seem to enjoy living in developing countries as opposed to, I guess you could say first world countries. It seems to be true. I seem to fit right in.
And maybe it's because life is slower and more simple.
I think it has, a lot of it has to do with that, not everything, but it definitely, after having the eye-opener of, oh my gosh, I've lost some of being Mongolian, and again, the rushing around and all of that, or how many things are important here that they're not that important in other places. And it's, and it's a personal thing. Anyway, we'll see.
Well,
I should keep you posted.
Well, yes, please. Well, and the thing is, I believe some form of that question exists for all of us. Sometimes, though, we don't hear it because we're so busy or so much in that proverbial rat race kind of thing. But where you got us thinking in the last conversation about life's third act, what do we do as we come to these more mature age? Now it's like, what do we do to really live our life more fully, that we're not being controlled by all those external factors?
And I thank you for that. Again, you're just a plethora of information today.
I'm mirroring back to you. I just want you to know I'm just mirroring back.
I think, again, we should do what we should do. And you said it earlier, why put a number on something? Mm-hmm. And in my book, how many times have I talked about don't stop doing something because of what other people say or think or age or whatever it is. And if that's you, then do it. As long as you're not hurting anybody else or yourself, then you need to be true to yourself.
Absolutely. That is it. Was it Shakespeare who originally said that, or that we attribute that to Shakespeare? Above all, to thine own self be true?
Oh, there, see, a simple 500, 600 years ago.
So they needed it then, but you're reminding us. And just, I really admire that you have done what you have done, and you just keep questioning it, which is, an example for us to question, not just kind of blithely go along the way because that's the way the treadmill's going.
Thank you. And I have done a lot, and I want to continue being that person. Mm-hmm. And so whatever that means, I do not want to stop. And so stay tuned, folks.
Yes, absolutely. Well, let's remind our listeners that if they didn't find the book the last time, A Mongolian Memoir, to be sure to find that. And where else can they find you talking about social connections?
I have a blog called The Wandering Nomad, and it's on Blogspot. So you can see everything that I've done for a long time and all of my thoughts and my interviews. And also the book is available through Amazon and also through Barnes & Noble. Yeah, and it's a great gift for Christmas.
Yeah, well, we're getting to that time when
I know.
Right? You're right. It is absolutely a perfect gift for someone who, and that's probably the majority of us, is just uncertain about where they are at this time in life, and particularly when they're thinking about that number being a little bigger than, they would like. It's like, forget about the number.
Yeah, no, yes, exactly. I love that. Forget about a number and just, be true to you. All the things that we keep hearing, but sometimes we don't, embrace it and grab hold of it. That all of us need to do that for ourselves.
And you are such a great example of that, a great model for us, Diane Height, to be doing just that. I just love your adventures. And yes, we'll have to stay tuned to see what's coming up next.
Thank you so much, Kate. It's always a pleasure talking to you, and we will stay in touch.
Wonderful. Thank you for connecting today, Diane. And that brings us to the end of a very full hour of Inspirational Women with Diane Height and Sunday Morning Magazine with Eddie Chukalate. I'm Kate Daniels, your host, and I greatly appreciate your sharing this hour with me and these special guests. For details you might have missed or information you'd like to know, please just send me an email, kated@warm1069.com, and I will get right back to you. Also, if you'd like to listen again or to share these important stories with your family and friends, find the podcast on our Warm 1069 webpage. Just click on the podcast tab, then either of the show names, and then look for the guest names. I now wish you and your family a day of living and loving life, sharing it with those who are important to us. Have a week of the same, and then please plan to join me again next weekend for another hour of Sunday Morning Magazine and Inspirational Women on Warm 1069. Good morning.